Hotel World. Welcome back to the Chosen Few channel. I'm your host, Matthew Daniels, the writer, author, scribe, and bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm, world. I'm the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. And as always, may your name live on forever, and may your memory, family, never die. Today, we're going to be telling a story about the 3 tests. You saw the title, family. I'm talking about the 3 tests. Today, this story gonna be coming out of this book I got. It's called African Myths. I don't even really remember when I bought this, and I don't remember where I bought it from. I go to so many different bookstores, but I've had it for a while, and there's a lot of good, interesting tales in here, man. If you're a bookworm like me, you may want to get this on your list to add to your library. But today, we're gonna be telling the story of the 3 tests. Now, there once was a king in Africa, right? And this king had 7 sons. Now, the eldest son of this king in Africa, he wanted to go on an adventure. So he respectfully told his father and his mother that he wanted to leave for an adventure. And after he had completed his adventure, he would come back home and continue life within the kingdom. So the father gave him his blessings. He gave him a boat, he gave him food, and he gave him a monkey. And so the eldest son, he sets out across the ocean to experience this great adventure. So he comes across an island, right? Why he's sailing? So he docks on this island because he wants to get on dry land for a while, and he sees that there are these like bushes, these little trees that have these berries on them. So he goes over, he gets one of the berries. He bites into it. It's juicy. It's delicious. It's wonderful. It's quenching his thirst. So he eat it out of the berries. And when he spits out the seeds from the berries, he noticed that they instantly, as soon as they touch the ground, they instantly sprout into another tree with more juicy berries. So amazed by this, he gathers up some of the berries, he gets back on the boat, and he sets back on his mission to complete his adventure. So he goes for a while, and he makes it to another island, right? But not an island, but it says he makes it to a strange land. And in this strange land, it's inhabited by what they call tall and powerful men. And they say that this group of tall, powerful men, this civilization, is led by a sultan. And so the eldest son of the king, he begins to brag about the berries and how when he spits them on the ground, they can sprout into new berries. And he says that he wants to show this great feat to the sultan of the land. So they immediately take him to the sultan. The sultan was like, I don't believe you, but I'll give you a chance to prove it. But the sultan told him, if you're telling a lie, I'm going to lock you up in jail just for wasting my time. And so the eldest son of the king in Africa, he says that he wants to do it. So he eats the berries, he spits out the seeds, they hit the ground, nothing happened. He's shocked. The sultan give the signal to his guards, they seize him, they lock him up in jail, they go on about their business. Time goes by, several months goes by back at home, and naturally, the family is wondering what happened to the eldest son. So the next eldest son decides to go out and find his older brother. So the next eldest son, he gets a boat, he gets food, etc., etc. He sets out. He makes it to the same island that his brother made it to. He sees the berries. He eats the berries. They're juicy. They're delicious. He spits out the seeds. They sprout into new trees. He has the same reaction as his brother. Oh my God, this is wonderful. He takes the berries onto the boat, gets back on the boat, crosses the ocean, comes to a strange land. A strange land that is inhabited by tall and powerful men and led by a sultan. The same strange land that his brother went to. And following in the pattern of his brother, he boasts about the fruit and the seeds and the miraculous things that they can do. And he says that he wants to show this great thing to the sultan. They take him to the sultan. The sultan says the same thing he says to the older brother. The next older brother, he eats the berry, spits out the seeds. Nothing happened. He's arrested, thrown into a cell next to his older brother. So over time, they began to worry about both of them. So one by one, all of the sons of the king in Africa leave, go to that island, and they all suffered the exact same fate and end up prisoners of the sultan. So it gets down to the king in Africa. He only had one son left, family, one son left. And this son was named Sadaka. right? Sadaka. And even though he was a youth, he would not abandon his brothers. So Sadaka was really young, the seventh son of the king, but he was not going to abandon his brothers. So he told his mother and father that he wanted to set out to find his brothers. And his mother and father, even though they had already lost 6, right? And he was their youngest, and he was a youth, the story says. They let him go because they knew the importance of bringing the other 6 back. Leave no man behind. He was supposed to go for his brothers, salute Sadaka, and salute his mother and father for letting him go get his brother, go get his older brothers. And so he gets a boat with millet, rice, and cattle on it, right? Millet, rice, and cattle on a boat. He embraces his parents and he leaves. As he leaves out over the oceans in the boat, he runs into a storm, right? He runs into a storm. His boat gets tossed and turned, tossed and turned, tossed and turned. He's fighting against the sea, and he gets thrown onto a cold, desolate island. He comes ashore on a cold, desolate island with nothing really on it to eat. No vegetation, no nothing. So he gets off to explore the island thinking maybe this is where my brothers are. And he comes across a flock of weather-beaten birds, probably weather-beaten by the storm. And these birds were close to starving, family. So immediately, without even thinking twice, Sadaka runs back to his boat. He gets the millet that he left with. He scatters it across the ground. The birds, they flock over there. They start eating the millet off the ground. They get full. They thank him for saving their lives and for being so kind. And the birds give him an incense, family, and they tell him, for being so kind, we're going to give you this incense. If you're ever in trouble, burn this incense and we will appear. Sadaka thanked him and he said, but I have to go on and try to find my brothers. So he continues to search this cold, desolate island. After a while, he comes across a lot of flies, family. Flies that were so hungry they could barely get off the ground. They were basically starving just like the birds. So immediately when Sadaka saw this, he ran back to his boat. He got the cattle that he brought. He slaughtered the cattle. And when he slaughtered the cattle, dead animals' blood, the flies flocked to that scene and began to eat and become full and live and revitalize themselves. And so the leader of the flies thanked him for his kindness and thanked him for saving their life. And the leader of the flies gave him another incense, which was identical to the one that the flock of weather-beaten birds gave him, and told him, if you are ever in any trouble, burn this incense and we will come. Bam. He says, okay, thank you. Takes the incense. Now he has 2. He goes further, still looking for his brothers. And then he comes across a family of jinn. Family of jinn. If you don't know what a jinn is, it's basically kind of like a mythological spiritual creature that's made of like fire and smoke. Not kind of like an angel, genie, kind of something like that, right? But it's a jinn. And so this family of jinn was starving. So immediately, without even thinking about it, Sadaka lit a fire and began to cook the rice that he had brought with him on the boat. And so when he cooked the rice, he gave it to the family of jinn to eat. They ate, they became full. They thanked him for his kindness. And do you know what they did, family? You guessed it. They gave him an incense identical to the one that the flies and the flock of weather-beaten birds gave him. And they told him that if he ever needed their help, he could burn the incense and they would appear. So he thanked them, right? He thanked them. So then he was like, well, he searched this island. I have to continue to find my brothers. So he gets back on his boat and he sets off. He eventually makes it to the strange land, right? He eventually makes it to not the strange land, but the strange island with the berries on it that his brothers made it to. He makes it to this strange, mysterious island. He gets off. He sees the berries. He walks over to him. He eats the berries. Just like his brother is good, is wonderful food. He eats it. He spits out the seeds. Instantly, the seeds start sprouting into new trees full of new berries. So he's like, wow, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. So he gathers up some of the berries. He sets off, right? But he doesn't set off to go find his brothers. Immediately he goes back to the cold desolate island to find the jinn to show them what he has. When he shows it to the family of jinn, the jinn tell him, oh yeah, we know about those berries, but we want to tell you something. Those berries only work with certain type of soil. It has to be the type of soil that's where they're already at. And so Sadaka thanked them for that information, and he left. He went back to the island, got more berries, but he also got soil, some of the soil. Then he set out again. He made it all the way, family, all the way to the strange land with the tall, powerful men that were led by the Sultan. And when he got there, he told the men that he saw about the berries that he had. And when they heard about it, they laughed. But he said he wanted to talk to the Sultan. They talked to the Sultan. The Sultan laughed. He tells them, man, we already have 6 people in our prison, 6 men in our prison for coming over here with this same wild tale. But if you want to get locked up too, that's on you. So he told him he would let him prove himself. He would let him try to prove himself. But if he failed, he would be locked up with everybody else. So Sadaka told him just give him overnight and he would do it in the morning. So the Sultan agreed. The wise men agreed. They left him alone. So he laid down in his bed. He snuck out in the middle of the night. He went to his boat. He got the special soil and he began to sprinkle it all around any area in the kingdom that he could, and especially where he knew the contest was going to be taking place. So he sprinkles the special soil all around. He empties out all of the buckets, all of the barrels rather that he had. He empties them as soon as the sun is beginning to rise. So as soon as the sun is beginning to rise, the Sultan comes out, the wise men come out, everyone comes out, and they are like, okay, let us see you perform this great feat. And so he gets the berries, he bites into them, he eats them, he spits out the seeds, and when he spits out the seeds, they instantly begin to sprout. Everybody in the kingdom goes wild. He repeated. They get some of the berries, they eat, they spit out seeds, the seeds sprout in the berries. Everybody is elated, everybody is going crazy. His brothers immediately get released from prison, and the Sultan, he was so happy, he basically had a big feast and showered them with gifts. Right, showered him with gifts, and he said that, you know what, man, I wish I had a son as wise as this guy, the young Sadaka. So he took him under his wing. And for a time, Sadaka was living there with the Sultan. And so Sadaka saw one of the daughters of the king, one of the princesses, and he fell madly in love with her, and he asked for her hand in marriage. The king got angry and basically said that nobody was worthy to marry his daughter. And so Sadaka said, give me an opportunity to prove myself. And so he said, give me an opportunity to prove myself, right? And so the king said, okay, I'll give you a test. He took him to a large storeroom, right? He took him to a large storeroom with hundreds of sacks of mixed grain. And he told him, I'll come back in the morning. If you can separate all of this grain into their own individual sacks and separate them all by the morning, then you will be worthy enough to marry my daughter. Sadake doesn't believe he can do it, but he agrees. The Sultan leaves. He's sitting there. He has his head in his hands. He's like, oh my, I don't know what I've gotten myself into. Then he remembers the incense, family. So he gets the incense that the birds gave him. He lights the incense, and immediately the birds show up. So the birds show up. He tells them what's going on immediately. And so the birds start flying around the room, picking up the grain. And so they separate all of the grain. And by the morning time, the Sultan come, he's blown away. He like, I don't know how you accomplished that. No. You have to do one more thing to prove yourself. That's just too amazing. And so Sadaka was like, what do I have to do? And so the Sultan took him outside and showed him a great big baobab tree, right? A baobab tree. I think that's how you pronounce it, a baobab tree. And he said, if you could cut through this massive tree with one swing of your sword, you will be worthy enough to have my daughter in marriage. And so Sadaka was like, he don't know how he gonna do it, but he agreed. He said, just give me some time and I'll do it in the morning. And so he agreed. And so Sadaka, he pulls out the next incense. He lights the incense that the jinn gave him. So the jinn show up. He explained what's happening. The jinn work their magic. They cause some white ants to appear. Some white ants appear and they eat out all of the inside of the tree, and they only leave the bark to where it just looks like a tree. So in the morning, when the sultan comes out and Sadaka swings his sword, whoosh, whoosh, he cuts through the entire tree, it falls over, and everybody is just so amazed, right? Everybody is just so amazed. But the king says, no, 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 no. I have to give you one final test to ultimately prove that you are worthy enough to have my daughter's hand in marriage. So Sadaka tells him, okay, what is the test? The sultan says that he is going to bring out all of the maidens in the kingdom. And he is going to have all of the maidens in the kingdom pass by. And now they're clothed now, pass by. And Sadaka would have to be able to pick out, they're covered up, would have to be able to pick out the princess. And if he could pick out the princess, then he could have her, she could be his wife for all of his life. And so Sadaka agrees. And so he tells him he'll do it in the morning again. And so overnight, he burns the last incense that he has, the one that the flies gave him. Some of y'all wouldn't save a fly, would you? Some of y'all wouldn't save a fly, but a fly could be valuable. He burned the incense that the flies gave him. The flies show up. He explains to the leader of the fly what's going on. And the fly says, okay, in the morning, just watch me. Just watch me. I'm going to land on the shoulder of the princess, and so you'll know who the princess is by the one that I land on. So in the morning, when all of the maidens were passing by, Sadaka was just focused on the fly, and the fly landed on the shoulder of the princess. Sadaki walked over to her, gave her a kiss on the cheek. It was revealed that she was the princess. Everybody was amazed, and the king was a man of his word, and he let him marry her daughter, and they lived happily ever after with land, money, and riches, and etc., etc., etc. And that's the story of the 3 tests from my book, The African Myths. Thanks for watching. This your brother Matthew Daniels, a.k.a. I'm Poop, a.k.a. The Chosen Few, a.k.a. The Real Bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm world. I'm the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. And as always, may your name live on forever, and may your memory never die.